Hello, I'm Gordon Brewer, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, where we explore the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Well, hello everyone, and Happy New Year. This is episode number 210 of the Practice of Therapy podcast, and so glad you've joined me as we start into this new year. And naturally at this time of the year, and probably even more so last week, a lot of us were just thinking about goals and resolutions and all that comes with starting a new year. And I think a lot of us begin to think about having a fresh start, or really starting over with some things, or really having different focuses. And so in this particular episode, as we start the new year, I want to just kind of give you some of my ideas around setting priorities and goal setting. You know, that's something, it's a topic that I kind of tackle at the beginning of every year. And I think it's always a good refresher, at least for me, when I start thinking about these kinds of things. If you're joining us again from previous episodes, or have been a follower of the podcast for some time, you probably noticed a little bit of a sound facelift. We've got a new intro that we started this year, and I just thought it was time to do that. I've used kind of the same music and same intro for the last few years, and so it was time for a change, which again, starting a new year always brings about thoughts of change and what it means to do things in a different way. So as we move into the new year, one of the things that I wanted to let you know about is, and this was kind of an exciting goal for me, is that the Practice of Therapy podcast is now part of a network of podcasts. It's a network that I started called the PsychCraft Network. And I've got a new podcast that's going to be launching in February, and it's called the Kindness and Compassion Podcast. And it's going to be co-hosted with my friend and colleague, Kayla Tapia. And this is just a topic that we've been passionate about for some time, but you can find out more about that podcast if you'll go over to kindnessandcompassion.com. Just spell it out, kindness and the word and compassion.com. There'll be a link here in the show notes and the show summary, and you can go ahead and listen to the trailer for that particular podcast. And I'm real excited about that, and being able to expand what I'm doing here with the Practice of Therapy, of really moving out into more the general public, so to speak, and teaching people how to put some mindfulness practices, kindness and compassion and gratitude and all those kinds of things, which are things that we think about as therapists. So that's coming up in February. And so you'll be hearing more about that. The other thing I wanted to let you know about is as I'm moving into the month of January, I have a new focus group that's starting on January the 13th. And if you're on my email list, you would have gotten an email with an invitation to that. And, you know, being part of a focus group is just a great way to really build some community and really hold yourself accountable as we move into the new year of really upping your game within your practice. Got just a few spots within that focus group. It's only going to be 6 to 8 people, but I'd love for you to apply and consider joining me. It's a great way to get some group coaching from me, and also, just as I said, just developing a great set of colleagues to share your practice journey with. And you can find out more about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. I lost my place there for a minute. Practiceoftherapy.com/focus group to find out more about that. So, got a lot of great guests lined up with upcoming episodes. I'm looking forward to you hearing from them. And just a lot of great things planned for the practice of therapy in this coming year. But in this particular episode, we're going to be just talking about setting priorities and maybe some things to kind of think about as you plan for 2022. And just maybe some ways to go about making those plans and setting goals for yourself. But before we get to my thoughts on setting your priorities in the coming year, I'd love for you to hear from our sponsor, TherapyNotes. In running a private practice, you need to have excellent systems and processes in place. And one of the leading electronic health record systems that you need to check out is TherapyNotes. They're who I use in my practice. TherapyNotes provides a patient portal, also the ability to schedule online, send appointment reminders, also handle your collections, insurance claims. It's all in one platform for the clinical side of your practice. And they also have telehealth available through their platform. As I said, they are who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. So be sure and check them out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and you'll be able to see what they have available. And also be sure and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. That's TherapyNotes at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. As we jump into a new year, I think it's, as I said earlier, it's only natural that we start thinking about resolutions and setting goals for ourselves. And, the start of a new year is just kind of a natural bookmark for hitting the reset button and just really thinking about things we want to change, things we want to accomplish in moving forward. One of the things that I've been doing this past week is really going through my planner and going through the past year's planner. I use a system called the Full Focus Planner, which is produced by Michael Hyatt and Company, and it's divided into quarters, and it's a paper-based planner. Some would call it old school, but I would just say that being able to write things down, physically write things down rather than tapping them out on our devices or on our phones, has a way of allowing us to process information differently. And there seems to be some research around this because it forces us, number one, to slow things down, but also there's that brain hand connection that is made to, if you write something out, we have a way of remembering it and processing it differently. So I really love using a paper-based planner and just thinking about keeping me on track with my productivity and just how I do things day in and day out with the different things that I have going on in my life. So you can find out about more about the Full Focus Planner if you're interested in that particular one. I like it a lot, so I kind of promote it here, but you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/full focus planner. And I've got a landing page set up there that just goes into detail more about that system. But not to go too far down a rabbit trail about that, I think one of the things in just planning for a new year or just really goal setting in general, I think it's important to really spend some time writing things down and really thinking about it on paper. I like doing something called a brain dump, which is just really getting a sheet of paper or your planner or notebook and just really everything that comes to mind that you want to accomplish or things that you're thinking about, tasks that you want to do, all of those things is just writing it down. And one of the things about doing that is it just really gets it all out of your brain and onto paper to where you can get a different perspective on what you're working on. Every day pretty much I set small, it's called in the Full Focus Planner, it's called your daily big three. And these are just the three most important things that you want to accomplish for that day. I think it's also good to kind of back up and do it on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, that sort of thing, whatever makes sense to you to really kind of think about that. So a place to start in setting your priorities and goals for the new year is to really kind of do that brain dump. And then as you do that brain dump and the things that you write down and the things that you feel like need to be priorities, as always, I think you need to ask yourself why those are priorities for you. What is your motivation behind doing those things or accomplishing those things? That is the place at which you will keep yourself grounded in what you're doing. So as you think about your practice, what are some of the things that you want to accomplish with that? Some of those goals or some of the things you want to accomplish might be around the financial side of your practice. Being able to, for example, increase your income with your practice, being able to have other sources of incomes or diversity of income within your practice. So think about those things, jot them down, the things that come to mind that you want to accomplish and your motivation for accomplishing those things. This past year, one of the things that I did at the beginning of last year is I really identified the different domains of my life. I think all of us have different domains and different areas of our life where we have maybe some different goals associated with those things. And when I think about domains, I think about, okay, I've got kind of my business domain. I've got my work here within my practice. That's one domain, but also I have my home life and my family and that kind of thing, which is just as important, if not more important than my business domain. So I've got goals around that particular domain or that particular aspect of my life. Also, goals around my community life. And also for me, that involves my church work and some of the things that I do as a clergy person. There are certainly goals and things I want to accomplish in that domain. Then also just there might be some things that are more community-based within your domain, community-based domain, if you will. I've got a group of close friends that I get together with regularly. And so there are different things that I like to be able to accomplish with those people along the way. And it might be something like getting away for a weekend or getting away for a retreat. But I think being able to do that brain dump of all the different things that you want to accomplish or all the things that have got your attention and then being able to assign them to a different domain has a way of helping you organize your priorities throughout the year. Associated with any sort of, particularly the business side, and I think even within our home domain, there are probably some financial goals or some financial things you want to accomplish. In fact, some people might say that your finances and the financial side of both your practice and your personal life would constitute one domain in and of its own, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But certainly the financial side of life is tied to all the others in that we do need to have income coming in. We do need to have resources available to us in order to accomplish and to feel comfortable and safe within our life or our lifestyle, if you will. So I think one of the things that might be a priority or is a good priority is to do a financial deep dive into your practice and into your own home finances. One of the things that you've heard from me a good bit over this last year is the importance of knowing your numbers. And certainly if you're going to be successful in your business and your practice, you need to know your numbers. You need to be able to understand how the money is flowing through your business and through what you do day in and day out. And so doing a financial deep dive at the beginning of the year can kind of give you a baseline for where you are now and then where you want to get to with your finances. Um, I use QuickBooks for that. The one of the ways that I've got things set up within my practice, the systems and processes, I use TherapyNotes to kind of manage the individual patient or client accounts, the money there, but the overall practice, I use QuickBooks for that. And so within QuickBooks, you can create various reports and that sort of thing. And I think one particular area that's important to look at is to look at where are your best income sources for the year? Where's the money coming in? Where are the places where maybe it's falling behind or things that you want to look at there? An example of that in my own practice, one of the things that we discovered here towards the end of the year is that we weren't doing as good a job on our collection of copays. I'm an insurance-based practice, so we weren't collecting well on those. And that was something that we needed to tweak because that's some people like to put it some low-hanging fruit. If you're not getting your money on the front end from your clients, it's harder later to collect from them if you're not getting it on the front end. So by doing a financial deep dive with those different things, that's how you can discover where what I like to call the money leaks are. And so that can give you another priority to look at within your practice. Another area that I think is important to people, and we've learned a lot about this over this past really, I started to say the past year, but the last couple of years with COVID, in that when we start getting isolated from folks, we kind of lose a sense of community and a sense of support from others. I know that this past year, back in October, I got together with my mastermind group. We'd been meeting on Zoom up until that time, and we got together for a long weekend retreat. And it did so much to kind of give me clarity about my goals within my practice, but also within my consulting business with the practice of therapy, where I want to take those things. So being able to have a community and a group of trusted colleagues to bounce things off of with just goes a long way in being able to help you have some clarity, but also not only that, but also gives you some accountability within accomplishing the goals and the priorities that you have for your practice and for your businesses. So I would encourage you to seek out community, encourage you to find ways to do that and incorporate that within your practice, within your daily activities. Again, focus group is a good way to do that, in that you quickly learn about other people's struggles, but you also have trusted people that you can bounce ideas off of to help you in your own struggles and the things that you're working on within your practice. So having a sense of community is an important thing and an important priority for people. Another thing that I think is important to remember, in just thinking about not only short term, like when I say short term, what are you going to be doing over the next year? What are you going to be doing over the next several months? What are you going to be doing over the next week? Is to really kind of look at what you need to be focused on in order to reach your goals. There are a lot of different paths to that, but I think one of the things that was helpful for me is to do what I call a 50,000 foot view. In other words, where do I want to be 5 and 10 years from now in terms of what I see my lifestyle being, what I see as I want my practice to look like, how I want it to run, all of those kinds of things. So spend some time writing those down and just brainstorming around long-term goals and how they're connected to your short-term goals. In other words, what are you doing now that's going to move the needle forward for you in the long run? Another thing that I think is important, and this kind of has a thread back to the financial side of things, but really looking at what you can do within your systems and processes to clean things up, to kind of get rid of the deadwood, so to speak. There might be things that you're doing within your practice that you could outsource, that you could hand off to somebody else, which would be a much better use of your time. If you were to think about it and you were to spend anywhere from $15 to $30 an hour on a virtual assistant that could answer phone calls for you, that could set appointments for you, that would be a huge return on your investment. Usually one client pays for a virtual assistant. If you're to be able to get one appointment from a client, that will pay for the cost of a virtual assistant. So being able to look at your money mindset around all those kinds of things is an important priority, but also looking at how you can outsource in a more efficient way of being able to hand things off so that you're not spending time on things that really aren't going to bring you any income anyway. Quick shout out to Uriah Guilford. Uriah has got a company called The Productive Therapist. And Uriah's really kind of forte is really helping people see how they can manage their time more efficiently, but also learning how to outsource things in a way that are going to bring you a good return on your investment for that outsourcing. So be sure to check that out with Uriah at the productivetherapist.com. And there'll be links here in the show notes and the show summary so you can find out more about Uriah. So just a quick recap of some of the things that I've covered. First of all is just looking at doing a brain dump, being able to kind of get everything out of the brain and putting it all down on paper so that you can see how it's connected to the differing domains of your life. And so kind of categorizing the different things that you want to accomplish over this next year. The other thing is to look at the things that you want to accomplish, is to have clarity around the why around those things, the motivation behind wanting to accomplish and set goals for yourself. Because if you don't start with why, you're going to quickly flounder and you're really not going to really know the way forward very well. You'll be shooting from your hip too much. So understand your why, understand your motivation behind things. The other thing that I mentioned, of course, is doing a financial deep dive of really looking at where the money's coming in, where it's going out, and looking for ways to diversify your income over this next year, whether it's either starting a group practice or creating products and services that other people are interested in buying. So that's another part of the financial piece, and being able to understand all of that. The other part is to do that financial deep dive of being able to look at your numbers and understand them, and not to shy away from that too much. The other thing is building community and the importance of having people that are going to support you and hold yourself accountable in the coming year with the ideas and the different domains that you have in your life. And when it comes down to it, one of the things about creating change just means creating new routines in our life. We are all creatures of habit. And I think one thing that just makes sense sometimes is to mix up our routine. I know that one of the things that has been helpful for me is really looking at how I've done things over this past year, and just being able to look at, okay, let me change the order of some of the things that I'm doing. And that just kind of gives us a fresh perspective when we go about it in that way. So hopefully these tips are going to be helpful for you and give you some things to think about. And I'm looking forward to you being with me through 2022. Well, folks, this wraps up this first episode of 2022. So glad you've joined me on this journey. Hopefully the things that I spoke about here in this particular episode gave you some food for thought and helping you know how to set your priorities for this coming year. Certainly there's a whole lot more to this than what I mentioned in just a little short podcast episode, but hopefully it'll give you some things to think about and just kind of how you organize your priorities for the coming year. Be sure to check out the focus groups that I've got coming up, and you can go over to practiceoftherapy.com/focus group to apply there. I'd love to have you join me. And as I mentioned in this episode, having some community that can support you through your journey is just a big game changer for a lot of folks. And I know it has been for me in the past. And I would love to have you join me in this upcoming focus group. It's going to be a limited just 6 to 8 people. So grab your spot while they're available. And as always, a big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. You can check them out by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice and couldn't operate without them. They are one of those systems and processes that you got to have. So be sure and check them out and use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So thanks again for joining me for the podcast. I'm looking forward to you being with me in 2022. Be sure to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And glad you're with me. Take care, folks. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.